page.
Wonderful.
Hi.
Right.
Good morning, Elizabeth. Good morning, everybody who's might be watching at page of World Unification Club. Today is my great honor. It's very special episode of World Unification Talk to have a special guest that is. I will introduce to you shortly, but today is July the 2nd, 2021, and this is episode 13 already of World Unification Talk. And let's welcome our guest. Please let me speak in Thai first. Sorry. ตอนนี้เป็นตอนที่ 13 ของรายการคุยเฟื่องเรื่องรวมโลกนะครับวันนี้วันที่ 2 กรกฎาคม 2564 วันนี้มีแขกรับเชิญคนพิเศษมากนะครับสำหรับรายการเรานะครับเดี๋ยวจะให้เธอแนะนำตัวเองนะครับคุณเอลิซาเบธโอเคเอลิซาเบธ we are very glad to have you today and can you please introduce yourself a little bit
Yes. I'm so honored to be here. Like I'm very happy that I get to speak with you, somebody who plays a big role in the larger movement. My name is Elizabeth. I go by Ellie. I am from the U.S., originally from Peru, and my field of study is mostly the intersection of peace and conflict studies with mental health. And now I'm in the field of international relations. I have many different interests from migration to environment to nuclear energy issues. And I'm here in Japan. I'm based in Japan right now, pursuing my PhD and working on the side on a couple other projects.
Mhm. Thank you um, uh, Elizabeth I can't hear you
Okay, so I should repeat again.
uh, oh okay please repeat again
Repeat again. Okay.
okay
So my name is Elizabeth.
Mhm.
I am originally from Peru, and I grew up in the United States,
Mhm.
in Utah, and I pursued the field of mental health and peace and conflict studies. And now I'm pursuing my research in international relations. And I'm passionate about migration and nuclear energy issues, as well as environmental issues.
Okay let me translate to Thai คุณเอลิซาเบธนะครับมี excuse me Elizabeth you were not born in Peru uh,
I was
you
born.
were
I was
born
born in Peru, and we
you were
moved
born in
to
Peru
America
yeah
when I was 6 years old.
โอเคคุณอลิซาเบธนะครับเกิดที่เปรูนะครับแล้วก็ย้ายอพยพพร้อมกับครอบครัวไปที่อเมริกาตั้งแต่อายุ6ปีนะครับแล้วก็แล้วก็เรียนที่อเมริกาแล้วก็มีความสนใจทางด้านเกี่ยวกับผู้อพยพด้วยแล้วก็เรื่องของพลังงานนิวเคลียร์เรื่องของสันติภาพต่างๆนะครับที่จะใช้ในทางสันติภาพนะครับโอเค Elizabeth I first knew you that uh, I'll try to show banner here to help me in uh, making the speech and maybe Elizabeth I first knew you from World Party meeting and but it seems to me that you work for several other projects for world peace can you describe about the project or the work that you do for world peace and world cooperation
Yes, I can explain. So, world unification is very important, and I'm able to support it in many projects. I have many projects. One is in peace building. I work closely with the ACUNS. It's a body. It's called the Academic Council of the UN system. So we bring practitioners and we bring academics to talk to each other about UN related issues. And to me, that's wonderful. It's a great platform to think about peace building, what that means, you know. Like for you, peace can mean something. For me, peace can mean so different, you know. So it's really understanding and being on the same page with peace building efforts. And I also work on doing right now an internship with the Nuclear Energy Agency, and how it's about nuclear deterrence and how we can get more trust in kind of the people within nuclear field, and having more women represented in the nuclear energy sector. And I also work on educational initiatives, like how do we get the global South interested in studying topics of unification and peace, you know. So it's webinars for young people and older people to learn about scholarships, you know. So if you want to come to Japan and you want to study peace, then there is a lot of scholarships that can support you to come. So I do my best to talk about those opportunities. And another last project would be RadioNatura. It's a podcast on environmental issues and how to rethink environmental issues in many ways. So we have a big global team under the leadership of Jordan Anderson and Randall. So basically 4 things. 1, peace building through United Nations Academic Council. 2, nuclear energy. 3, education. And 4, environmental sustainability. So those 4 areas are areas that I'm working on.
Thank you. คุณอลิซาเบธบอกว่าเธอทำงานเพื่อสันติภาพเนี่ย4 อย่างหลักๆนะครับอันหนึ่งคือทำงานกับ peace building ของ United Nations นะครับแล้วก็อันที่2เป็นเรื่องของ nuclear energy เพื่อสันติภาพครับพลังงานนิวเคลียร์แล้วอันที่3เป็นเรื่องของการศึกษาแล้วอันที่4เป็นเรื่องของexcuse me Elizabeth what's the 4th one
It's okay. It's environment.
Environment.
Yeah, environment.
Like with Pax
Terra. Yes. Talking about environment.
Pax environment. I forgot the name. They call it Pax Natura.
Yes.
It's also and you are the co-founder of RadioNatura. I'll ask about that later.
Okay.
And next.
Yes.
Excuse me, I forgot my script.
It's okay.
I'm very not professional.
No, it's good.
This program is very small, and it's my great honor that you give us.
So I'm so happy to be here. You're doing such amazing work.
Okay, so maybe the next question will be, please introduce us more about your past, present, and future plans.
Right.
Can you?
Yes,
let us know
think
something.
My past plans, my current plans, and my future plans. I have many different plans. I want a lot of my projects to grow, you know, become bigger and have more of a global presence. And at the same time, I want to engage with my research more. I want to continue working on my research and finding ways to think very interdisciplinary about my topic is securitization. So my research, my projects for them to grow, and in the future, I would love to have also many different skills. Like peace building is important and unification is important, but you also need to know things like mediation and conflict resolution. So that's one of my goals, to become better at that as a person. So yeah, but my mother used to say, like, it's really good to have passions and have projects, right? But she really said you need to focus on the mission, right? So if you, it's good to have projects, but most important is the mission and vision. So if one project is good, that you can change to another project, you can change to another project, it's okay. So the flexibility of having many things, but having one sole vision is kind of a little bit about me. So
So have you got the ultimate mission of your life?
oh, that's a deep question. Yes, I think it's two. One
Mm,
is like making the world better than when I found it. And so I think world unification, movements like this one is important because you're enhancing. And the other one is that human connection. I think anybody who talks to me, I would like them to come out feeling, I don't know, different. Because in my life, I've seen so many people passionate about making the world much a better place. And they always inspire me. Every time I talk to them, I'm like, wow, I want to do so much more. So that's my ultimate mission. I think those two
okay.
things.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. ผมถามคุณเอลิซาเบธนะครับว่าให้บอกเรื่องเกี่ยวกับอ่าอะไรล่ะแผนงานในอดีตปัจจุบันและอนาคตของเธอนะครับเธอก็บอกว่าเธอก็ทำโครงการต่างๆนะครับหลายอย่างแล้วก็ในปัจจุบันก็ต้องการให้โครงการหลายๆอย่างสำเร็จแต่ว่าสุดท้ายเธอบอกว่าคุณแม่บอกว่าการมีโครงการนั้นสำคัญแต่ว่าเป้าหมายสำคัญควรจะยึดควรจะมีเป้าหมายที่ชัดเจนนะครับเพื่อไม่ให้ทำโครงการอะไรไปต่างๆก็ผมก็เลยถามว่ามีเป้าหมายสำคัญสุดในชีวิตหรือยังเธอก็บอกว่าพอจะแยกได้เป็น2 อย่างก็คือเรื่องของทำให้โลกดีขึ้นนะครับด้วยการร่วมกับงานโครงการต่างๆอย่างเช่นการรวมโลกของชมรมรวมโลกเราเนี่ยนะครับแล้วก็อีกอย่างก็คือเรื่องของความสัมพันธ์ระหว่างมนุษย์นะครับ human connection เนี่ยทำให้ให้มีปฏิสัมพันธ์ที่ดีกับผู้คนมั้งนะครับโอเค next question
Yes.
Elizabeth it will be related to your that when I know you and then I knew that you were a TEDx speaker
Yes.
and TEDx seems to be a very powerful platform for international speakers. Do you think TEDx has capacity to help unify our world somehow?
Yes. Yes. Very much. I think TEDx is a good platform. But any platform is a good platform, I think. For example, your platform right now, even though it's a specific community, it's still making a difference, and it's tailored to a particular set of people. And I think this platform is even better than TEDx to some extent, to really get the message across. So I think any platform, whether global, whether local, is incredibly important to unify the world. And my TED Talk was on migration and this idea of the us and them, like it was kind of touches on tribalism and how as humans we like to connect with our own, and in many issues it's like, oh, this is me, this is you, and we don't work together, we're not unified, right? So in the talk I talk about 3 lessons about the Incas. The Incas were very wise, and they wanted unification in many ways. And so in order to unify the world and the Inca Empire, they said it's important to do 3 things. Number 1, and I think you know this, but number 1, like, don't steal, right? Don't steal. And they said, don't steal from others the chance of knowing you, right? Getting to know people, talking to people, understanding their lens of the world is important. And that's what you're doing now, I think, which is good. And then don't lie means don't lie about what you don't know. Be humble, right? Say, I don't know this, so please teach me. And that brings so much unity, because if you don't know and I'm teaching you or you're teaching me, then we feel much more connected, right? And the last thing is don't be lazy, right? So sometimes we want a unified world, but it's really hard and sometimes unrealistic or sometimes too much work. So there's no action. But I think what your kind of movement does is it puts action, has conversation. And even conversation is action. Um, in dialogue, we often think, oh, the result will be, we'll have a result, we'll have an outcome. After we have a conversation, we will be more unified. And that's not necessarily true, right? The act of having a conversation alone is important. The action may be later, but the conversation is more important than anything. So I think in that sense, TEDx helped me deliver that message. But I think any platform, regardless of a global maybe angle, is very important in that sense. I think one thing that is also important is understanding that we are part of this larger world, right? For example, and I'm sorry this is going to be a long translation. For example, um, my arm, and my leg are different, right? So if I hurt my arm, I'm hurting myself, right? Because my arm and my leg are connected to my body. So this idea that you are different than me is just an illusion, because we are all connected to the world. The world is the body that I belong to. You are the arm and I am the leg. So if we're able to look at people and see people as part of us, then that makes such a big difference, because we are already united. It's just becoming aware, right? Becoming aware that we are united. And once we are aware, we can do so much more for the world.
โอเคผมถามคุณเอลิซาเบธนะครับว่าจากที่เธอเคยพูดในเวทีของ TEDx เนี่ยเลยถามว่าเวที TEDx เนี่ยจะช่วยรวมโลกได้อย่างไรหรือเปล่าคุณเอลิซาเบธก็บอกว่าTEDx แน่นอนว่าเป็นแพลตฟอร์มที่มีประโยชน์เหมือนกับแพลตฟอร์มอื่นๆรวมถึงแพลตฟอร์มการคุยเฟื่องเรื่องรวมโลกของเราเนี่ยก็อาจจะช่วยได้ด้วยเช่นกันนะครับก็คือเธอบอกว่าทุกแพลตฟอร์มล้วนดีหมดแต่ว่าเราจะต้องใช้มันให้เกิดประโยชน์เพื่อการรวมโลกแล้วก็เพื่อสร้างสันติภาพในโลกนะครับโดยเธอพูดถึงการพูดใน TEDx ของเธอว่าเธอเน้น3ประเด็นที่จะมาช่วยให้มนุษย์สามัคคีกันนะครับก็คือthree things. One is don't lie, don't steal,
don't lie, don't be lazy.
Don't lie and don't be lazy. ก็คืออันแรกเนี่ยคืออย่าไปลักขโมยหมายถึงว่าอย่าไปขโมยโอกาสที่คนอื่นจะมาเรียนรู้ตัวเรานะครับแล้วก็อันที่สองก็คืออย่าโกหกนะครับก็คืออย่าไปโกหกว่าเรารู้ในสิ่งที่เรายังไม่รู้นะครับเพื่อให้การสนทนามันเกิดประโยชน์ที่สุดแล้วก็อย่างที่3ก็คืออย่าขี้เกียจในการทำอะไรต่างๆอย่างการเธอก็บอกว่าอย่างการคุยกันเนี่ยก็เป็นการทำการลงมือ take action ที่จะทำให้เกิดสิ่งดีๆในโลกนะครับแล้วเธอก็พูดถึงว่าความเชื่อมโยงของสิ่งต่างๆอย่างเช่นแขนขาถ้าเราทำร้ายแขนมันก็เจ็บไปถึงขาเหมือนกับที่มนุษย์เราทั่วโลกมีความเกี่ยวข้องสัมพันธ์กันนะครับดังนั้นถ้าเราส่งผลกระทบต่อบุคคลหนึ่งก็อาจจะส่งผลกระทบต่อคนทั้งโลกและย้อนกลับมาหาตัวเราในที่สุดครับต่อไปso Elizabeth the next question will be regarding also about your talk in TEDx about human mobility and you said that your father received visa lottery from US and could move to United States. He was very lucky, right? And what do you think about other humans that are not lucky like him? Do you think should it be better if all humans have freedom to move around globally?
That's a really, really good question. I think that's a pillar of world unification, right? So
Yeah.
I think we have all moved around in many ways, right? Human mobility is much bigger than just migration because it's not just international borders. It's we've been moving in terms of like region too, right? So, for example, in Thailand, you're in the north, you can move to the south. Even houses, right? I'm in this house, I can move to the next house. So people have been moving around constantly. Like it's not new. I think the visa lottery program was established by the United States because at the time they had my father I think was qualified because they didn't have a lot of Peruvians in the U.S. and so it opens up to certain nationalities, right? So yes, it maybe sometimes it's maybe luck, right? But it's important to understand that migration and human mobility isn't just because of programs like this. It's much more bigger. So I wanted to quote Benedict Anderson. So Benedict Anderson talks about like imagined communities, and he says that that nations have always existed throughout history, and every nation has ethnic origins such as like myth and memories. Um, and he claims that states created the nation through modernization. It has only existed through the modern era. So he makes the point that, and I'm going to quote him, he says, the members of even the smallest nations will never know most of their fellow members, meet them, or even hear of them. Yet in the minds of each lives an image of their communion, right? So in that sense, I think that um, when we talk about migration, it's we're not just talking about people changing borders. We're talking about people changing communities, people's identity. It's much more deeper than just moving, right? Going on a plane or walking and going to another border. It's so multidimensional. And so for me, it depends. It depends a lot. And I think everyone should have the right to migrate. That's not the reality right now because of many things. Um, but it depends on the country, on the situation, and on the context. Because if we understand country, situation, context, then I think then that would be important, especially not to generalize. I think coronavirus has been very interesting when it comes to migration, right? The pandemic has made us rethink ideas of borders, right? Even like we think about the nation or the state like protecting us, right? But this is a virus, right? This is something that they really don't necessarily have the resources to protect. So the virus itself is passing all borders, right? The virus has impacted the US tremendously, India tremendously, South America, and it doesn't say I'm just going to impact this because the borders are here and I'm going to impact this country. No, it's just expanded. So what does this teach us? This teaches us many things about many communities. It teaches us that many of the issues that exist in many of these communities related to migration or not migration. So in that sense, I think people should be able to move freely, but we should also understand, just to wrap it up, context, culture, situation, and also be very reflect a lot of what's happening now because the virus, I think, is a very good metaphor of how this phenomenon of borders is perceived, you know, and how different countries are responding to this.
Okay, thank you. ผมถามคุณอลิซาเบธเกี่ยวกับเรื่องอาการเคลื่อนไหวในของมนุษย์ทั่วโลกเนี่ยนะครับอย่างที่เธอพูดในเวที TEDx ว่าเเนื่องจากพ่อของเธอโชคดีที่ได้วีซ่าลอตเตอรี่นะครับไปที่สหรัฐก็เลยถามว่าถ้าทุกคนมีเสรีภาพที่จะท่องเที่ยวได้ที่จะไปได้ทั่วโลกมันจะดีกว่าไหมคือไม่ใช่แค่คนที่โชคดีบางคนนะครับเธอก็บอกว่าเธอก็สนับสนุนให้ทุกคนควรมีเสรีภาพแต่ว่าในเสรีภาพในการเคลื่อนไหวครั้งนี้ไม่ได้รวมเฉพาะเรื่องของการเคลื่อนที่ทางกายภาพหมายถึงทาง ภูมิประเทศแต่หมายถึงการเคลื่อนที่ในทางสังคมด้วยนะครับทางการเปลี่ยนลำดับชั้นจากกลุ่มหนึ่งไปกลุ่มหนึ่งเนี่ยก็ควรจะมีเสรีภาพด้วยแล้วก็สุดท้ายเธอบอกว่าเรื่องของโคโรนาไวรัสเนี่ยก็เป็นสิ่งที่มาสอนมนุษย์ว่าเชื้อไวรัสมันสามารถไปได้ทั่วโลกโดยไม่มีพรมแดนดังนั้นมนุษย์ก็ควรจะได้คิดกันถึงการเดินทางที่จะไปอย่างไร้พรมแดนทั่วโลกด้วยแล้วแต่ว่าในการเคลื่อนย้ายข้ามพรมแดนเธอก็บอกว่าสิ่งสำคัญมันก็มีอยู่3อย่างคือต้องเข้าใจบริบทของสังคมแล้วก็สถานการณ์ที่เกิดขึ้นแล้วก็the context of society and situation and then what the other thing
Yes. So context, culture, situation.
culture yeah แล้วก็วัฒนธรรมด้วยนะครับวัฒนธรรมของแต่ละที่ถ้าเราสามารถเรียนรู้แล้วก็ปรับให้อยู่ด้วยกันได้เนี่ยมันจะดีมากนะครับ so the next question will be about the recent program that you has launched called RadioNatura. I think that is an interesting idea. So I would like to know your expectation about RadioNatura, please.
Yes, thank you for asking. So I think when we think about world unification, we have so many issues, right? If you want to unify the world, you have to start somewhere. And for me, it started on different environmental issues. I think the environment is a good place to start. And I noticed, to be very honest, I didn't know much about environmental issues, but a lot of my friends were passionate about this topic. So I figured, okay, this is a good opportunity. And during Corona, this project started during Corona time, and it was an idea to bring together young people to talk about environmental issues from different languages and in different topics. And it has been really wonderful because it has been supported by PAX International, which is an organization in the US, doing amazing work. And in these, it's not radio; it's mostly interviews with people on different environmental issues. For example, I got to interview the atomic bomb survivors of Nagasaki.
Yeah,
So
I saw that, and they were not young people, right? They were almost 100 years old already.
yes,
The
and
interview.
exactly, and being able to talk with them on Zoom, something that would not be possible, had united us, and we talked about the environmental implications of the atomic bomb and their story because it's very important to remember their story. It was such an incredible opportunity, and also got to talk to other people, and we're in the process of building more episodes. I have to recognize Jordan Anderson because I think he has been such an incredible force behind this. I'm helping lead it, but he's definitely leading it as well. So I feel very lucky to be in a team with him. And Randall, right? He supported us from day one. And when I think about world unification, I also recently joined the Justice Party movement, and this is a party looking at 3 different angles of society: economic justice, environmental justice, and social justice. And I think it's a really good philosophy. If we want to solve an issue, we have to think about it from these 3 perspectives. So this podcast is maybe tackling environment, but in indirect ways, also tackling kind of social justice issues and economic issues too. So I'm very happy. I think the project is good. I'm happy. I'm able to connect with so many people, but the larger goal, I think we should not forget, is the idea of knowledge. Knowledge is so important. And one of my mentors said, there is a limit to our knowledge. No matter if we have a PhD or we study a lot, there is a limit. But ignorance is boundless, right? There is no limit for ignorance because we can be ignorant so much. So I like to connect myself with people who are different from me. I don't know much about this topic, so teach me. And I think that that is my philosophy of life. And I think this project is just one part of this bigger idea. So if we're constantly able to learn and ask questions, and when it comes to world unification, say, what does world unification mean for me? What do I want to contribute? Even if I'm very small, how can I make a difference, you know? And there's this really good story, and there was like I will share really quickly. It was a beach, very beautiful beach, and they had many little starfish. And this boy was throwing the starfish back to the beach because when the sun came, it would kill all the starfish, right? And there was an old man who said, "You're so ignorant. Like there's millions of starfish here. You're not going to save them all. Like the sun will come out in 2 minutes." And so the young boy holds the starfish, and as he throws it back, he's like, "But I made a difference for this one. Okay, this one will be saved, and this is enough of a difference." Even though he's not able to save all the starfish, he's able to save this one. And I think that embodies the podcast and also world unification in ways because you, even this platform, right? You have a community that you're making a difference, and that's incredible because that difference will, you don't know, will impact so many other people. And that's what I think that at the heart of unification is.
โอเค thank you ผมถามเกี่ยวกับความคาดหวังของเธอที่ในการทำรายการวิทยุจริงๆแล้วก็มีทางทางภาพด้วยนะครับคือ RadioNatura เนี่ยซึ่งเป็นเธอก็เป็นผู้สัมภาษณ์หลักในโครงการนั้นนะครับเธอก็บอกว่ามันเป็นเรื่องที่อาจจะดูว่าเน้นทางด้านสิ่งแวดล้อมนะครับแต่ว่าจริงๆแล้วก็เกี่ยวพันกับทั้งเรื่องของสังคมนะครับเรื่องของสันติภาพแล้วก็เรื่องของเศรษฐกิจด้วยก็จะพยายามโยงมาเกี่ยวเพราะเธอล่าสุดเธอก็ทำงานกับคล้ายๆ Justice Party นะครับก็แล้วก็ทีนี้เธอยกตัวอย่างอันนั้นนะครับว่าการช่วยสิ่งเล็กๆน้อยๆหรือว่าคือทำเท่าที่เราทำได้เนี่ยมันจะเป็นประโยชน์อย่างเช่นเธอยกตัวอย่างในกรณีที่มีหาดทรายที่สวยงามแห่งหนึ่งแล้วก็มีเด็กชายคนหนึ่งนะครับเด็กชายคนหนึ่งกำลังหยิบปลาดาวที่มาเกยตื้นที่จะถูกแดดเผาตายนะครับโยนทิ้งกับทะเลแล้วก็มีคนแก่คนหนึ่งมาเห็นเด็กชายนั้นโยนปลาดาวกลับลงทะเลก็บอกว่าโอ้ช่างไม่ดูเลยว่ามีปลาดาวอยู่เยอะแยะมากมายทั่วชายหาดเนี่ยเธอจะช่วยมันไหวยังไงเด็กน้อยก็เลยแสดงปลาดาวตัวหนึ่งมาว่าแต่ว่าฉันช่วยปลาดาวตัวนี้ได้คือฉันอาจจะช่วยทั้งหมดไม่ได้แต่ว่าช่วยได้บางคนก็เหมือนกับการพูดคุยของเราเนี่ยก็อาจจะจุดประกายให้ใครบางคนได้นะครับแม้ว่าจะได้ไม่ได้ถึงขั้นเปลี่ยนแปลงได้ทั้งโลกแต่เราก็ทำให้ดีที่สุดในส่วนของเรานะครับ alright so next question Elizabeth uh, so we have in World Unification Club let me show you something that I will share screen to let you see the maybe I can share PowerPoint okay maybe this and then do you see this and I will share here that your TEDx let me this is what when you spoke in TEDx floor and this is about refugees that I prepared and that they deserve to have good quality of living too, right? And this is RadioNatura and a link to that. And this is our World Unification Club. We have people gathering together in two events annually, and we set goals that we should have a united world where when people in the entire earth live like being in the same country or being that situation means that there should be no borders to block free movement of people around the world, and there should be no wars. And without wars, that means we don't need any armies at all then to prepare to make wars against each other. So what do you think about these goals of World Unification Club?
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing. Yes, I met, I think I was in a call with them one time. I don't know if you remember, but I think the passion that you all have is incredible. For me, the two goals are good, larger goals. I think, I think they're very ambitious, and that's not a bad thing. I think it's important to also contextualize it. No armies and no like wars. But what does this mean, right? I think many people all over the world, you get three types of people, right? The realist would say that's not possible. The liberalist would say, okay, if we combine like cooperation of organizations, it's possible. The constructivist would say, yeah, we can get to this. So if you look at it from different angles, it's important to understand this. But I also think it's important to unpack the concept of war and armies, you know? So the ontology of war, I think, lies on the act of fighting, two people fighting, right? So to some, war is like this idea of alliance, nationally based alliance of people to nations. But others perceive war as a reflection of economic, socioeconomic systems. So war has two parts, right? The tanks, the planes, the explosives, and also the operational, like the soldiers, the nationals, right? So it has these two parts. And Cross, in an article in 2019, he says we need to think about war much more deeply. He says it's not just war. There are many categories. He says that the use of the term war itself is very generic and broad. So he proposed a narrow typology. He says there are 20 different kinds of categories for war. Includes classical limitless feudal wars, imperial expansionist wars, classical cabinet wars, traditional people's wars, postmodern hybrid wars, educational wars, like disarmament preventive wars. Like there's 20 categories, right? So to me that this is fascinating. And when we think about the goal to end this, we also need to tailor, okay, what type of war are we talking about and how should we end it? So I think it's very important to understand the categories. And at the very basic level, war is nothing. I think Claude in 1940 says that war is nothing but an act of violence intended to compel our opponent to fulfill our will. However, another person, Schmidt and Foucault, two scholars in 2012 say, but war goes beyond just compelling the enemy, right? It implies questioning the motives that cause the political actors to resort to violence, understanding the historical context and significance of the conflict, right? And one thing that's also very important to understand is that wars were not seen as a bad thing initially. Now they are, because we realize more. After nuclear deterrence, war gained a different meaning. But actually, before the Enlightenment period, war was actually an intrinsic part of social and political order. If Howard, which is a scholar published in 2000, he said, if bound for the right political reasons, war even helped impose meaning into a chaotic political system instead of disrupting order. So he said it was a good vehicle to stop chaos. But after nuclear deterrence became a new source of threat, war transitioned into a phenomenon where people could control by conditions like when war is not acceptable, right? So it becomes something we don't want. Look at Japan, right? Japan and its role in World War II and the Pacific War specifically, and how it impacted so many lives. And it wasn't just Japan; it went beyond that. So what I'm saying is, we need to understand war from a multidimensional view to achieve this goal, which I think is a great goal in the symbolic way and in the spirit. And in terms of borders, I think we talked about this a little bit already. But we should also contextualize what that means for a country, right? And maybe foster. I think these two principles talk more about fostering a shared identity. If we're able to have a shared identity with values, we want to make the world a better place. and what does this look like for people? If we're able to understand that, then that's important. Because in order to achieve peace, as I said earlier, we need to understand what peace means to you, right? We're military. My friend who's in the military, I ask him, what is peace? And he says, peace is the end of war. And then I ask an academic, a university professor, and I'm like, what is peace? Well, he says, what is peace? And he says, oh, it's something to study. It will always happen. And you ask somebody in the United Nations, and they're like, oh, we can measure peace. We can put these resolutions for peace, and we can put these peace building missions, right? So, and if you ask maybe like somebody in the field of meditation, they can say, oh, peace is in my mind. It's all the mind. It's nothing exterior. So when we think about this, it's important to look at how different people perceive. So in order to reach the goals of no borders, no wars, which is the framework of the World Unification Party, is we need to be on the same page. We need to understand what people mean, and we need to really be critical about these two words and these two concepts. And I think then we'll achieve real change.
Okay, thank you. ผมถามเกี่ยวกับความคิดเห็นของคุณอลิซาเบธเกี่ยวกับเป้าหมายของชมรมรวมโลกนะครับที่ต้องการจะว่าผู้คนควรจะมีเสรีภาพไม่มีพรมแดนแล้วก็โลกควรจะมีสันติภาพก็คือไม่มีสงครามแล้วก็ไม่ต้องมีกองทัพไว้เตรียมสู้รบกันเธอก็บอกว่าก็เป็นสิ่งที่ดีแต่ว่าในการจะทำให้บรรลุเป้าหมายนี้นะครับก็จะต้องทำให้มีความชัดเจนเพราะว่าในเรื่องของพรมแดนแล้วก็เรื่องของสงครามเนี่ยบางคนก็เข้าใจความหมายที่แตกต่างกันไปนะครับมันอาจจะเป็นสงครามซึ่งระหว่างบุคคลก็ได้หรือสงครามอะไรต่างๆก็คือสงครามมีหลายระดับแล้วก็สันติภาพก็มีความหมายในบุคคลต่างๆที่แตกต่างไปเราก็ทำให้ชัดเจนแล้วก็น่าจะไปสู่ความสำเร็จได้แต่เป็นเป้าหมายที่ค่อนข้างจะยากนะครับเธอก็บอกว่าเป็น ambitious หมายถึงว่าค่อนข้างจะดูยิ่งใหญ่ดูไกลแต่ก็อาจจะได้นะครับโอเค so then next question will be in your let me show you this slide first. I will show you that because in my understanding there are several movements or several solutions that may lead to unification of the world. These are like a collection of movements or projects that can help the world become one. So there are both that based on United Nations or based on national governments or based on internet platforms or based on blockchain the fights of individuals, activists. So there are several solutions for world unification. So what is the best or the most promising world unification solutions in your opinion?
Thank you for the slide. It looks wonderful. For me, the best solution are the tailored solutions. So all these initiatives are great, and I'm sure they're making a big difference. But if somebody in the community who knows the community is able to come up with a thought, is able to come up with something that works for their community to help enhance awareness, I think that's the best. Because, like, there's a story, and I'll say it briefly. For example, there one time there was an island, right? There was people in this island, and they didn't have much of they weren't exposed to much of the you could say development. They lived in very basic ways. And one time, this group of researchers brought them and moved and I think took them to a different part of Asia to show them, look at the world, look what you're missing, right? And so they brought this group, and they're like, what do you think? What do you think? Like they showed them skyscrapers, they showed them helicopters, they showed them cars, they showed them phones, everything. And then at the end of the trip, after 4 days of experiencing everything, the most fascinating technology, the best things ever that the human being has created, they asked them, so what is the most amazing thing that you've seen in this like very developed like technology savvy place? And and so this group that lived in this very basic island looked at each other and they said, we believe that the I think wheelbarrow was most incredible. The wheelbarrow is the like a thing to move, to move things. You put things in
Okay,
and then you
okay.
can move them. The
Yeah,
wheelbarrow.
a card.
A cart, yeah. And so
Yeah.
then you're like, what? You think the cart is amazing? No, you just saw a skyscraper. You just saw like this amazing like technology, and I guess like you could even say blockchain. And they say, no. Like the wheelbarrow is amazing because in our community, we have so much issue holding these big rocks and moving them. So much. Like we have to spend so much energy. But now we have solved the problem. We will use a cart like this one and modify it so that it helps us. So I think that's a really incredible example of solutions. Sometimes the best solutions, the ones that are the most incredible, they must look nice. And yeah, they work. But the most interesting ones for me, the ones that will truly make a difference, are the tailored ones based on the context of the people in that community, right? For me, a card is I don't think it's that great, but for other people, it responds to a need that the community is facing, right? So I think the best solution and approaches are ones that are tailored, are ones that come from bottom up instead of up down, and are ones that are innovative and bring people together.
โอเคคุณอลิซาเบธผมถามเกี่ยวกับแนวทางหลายๆอย่างในการรวมโลกนะครับแล้วว่าคุณอลิซาเบธคิดว่ามันหลายๆแนวทางนี้แนวทางแบบไหนที่จะดีที่สุดในการช่วยให้โลกรวมเป็นหนึ่งเดียวเธอก็บอกว่าแนวทางที่ดีที่สุดนั้นขึ้นอยู่กับเป็นแนวทางที่จะสร้างความตระหนักได้มากที่สุดซึ่งมันต้องดูที่บริบทของสังคมด้วยนะครับแต่ละสังคมอย่างเช่นเธอยกตัวอย่างในกรณีที่มีนักวิจัยไปที่เกาะแห่งหนึ่งแล้วก็โชว์ภาพเทคโนโลยีอะไรต่างๆให้ชาวเกาะดูมากมายนะครับแล้วให้ชาวเกาะบอกว่าเทคโนโลยีอะไรที่เขาประทับใจที่สุดแทนที่เขาจะบอกว่าเป็นพวกอาวุธหรือว่าเป็นพวกอะไรที่มันแอดวานซ์มากๆนะครับเป็นคอมพิวเตอร์เป็นอะไรเนี่ยเขาก็บอกว่ามันเป็นรถรถลากรถเข็นนะครับชาวเกาะบอกว่านี่คือเทคโนโลยีที่ล้ำที่สุดเพราะมันจะช่วยให้พวกเขาขนหินได้ก็คือสรุปว่าถ้าเราจะเอาแนวทางรวมโลกไปบอกที่ไหนเนี่ยนะครับก็ให้เอาแนวทางที่มีประสิทธิภาพกับกลุ่มคนสังคมนั้นๆนะครับก็ประมาณนี้นะครับโอเค so the next question Elizabeth now we come to um, the I want to ask about the ideal world in your opinion what you would like to see in the world what kind of the world that you would want the most want the yeah maybe this include the next question too that what are important factors for all humans to live happily together that maybe the ideal world are also the world that everyone is happy so please give your opinion about ideal world and also the happiness of people in the world
Yeah, that's a good question. Can you hear me?
yes I do
Okay.
yes
Yeah, it's interesting because like there's the happiness report, right? That gets published every year, and it tells you the country that's the most happiest. And it's always one of the very small countries within Europe. And to me, it's always in right. How do we measure happiness? How do we measure peace? how can we become a better world? So I think an ideal world would be one of a lot of self-awareness. I think if we come from a place of self-awareness of ourselves, as the Zhao, who is the author of The Art of War, he says, if you know thyself and you know thy enemy, you will forever win 1,000 battles. So a world where there is a lot of awareness about the self and how we're all interconnected is what I think is ideal. I think John Rawls talks about the veil of ignorance. He says, imagine if you forgot where you come from, how much money you have, your gender, your race, your everything. You forgot everything. And you pass through this veil. And in this veil, they tell you, they bring issues up. Do you think this law should be passed? What do you think of this? What do you think of that? It says you would be for a lot of the issues progressing communities, right? Because because you might be afraid that in this new world, you might be compromised. And he says it comes from a very self-interest perspective, but I think it comes from a very inclusive perspective too. I think we need a community where we're self-aware and we're also thinking about the other in many ways. And how do we begin to think about the other is by interacting with the other, right? How am I gonna empathize and have compassion with people that I have not necessarily met? It is possible, but imagine all the wonderful opportunities that there is if we're able to talk to each other. So that's what I see. I'll tell you a really interesting analogy. One time there was an orange, and there were two boys, and the two boys wanted the orange. So the man says, "Okay, I will cut the orange and split into two. You take this, you take this." The first boy says, "Great, thank you." He goes, takes the orange, and makes orange juice. Drinks the juice, throws away the peel. The other boy takes the peel, throws away the orange, and makes marmalade, because through the peel you can make marmalade with the bread, and gives it to the mom to make this very good jam marmalade. And so it's sad because this orange basically had two potentials, right? If they communicated, this orange, like the boy could make the juice, and at the same time the other boy could make marmalade, right? But they didn't communicate. So we lost an orange that had potential of two different servings. And so you lost the whole orange by splitting it. And I think in the world we are often think like very we often think, okay, we're gonna split the orange, everyone has some, but it's much more than that. It's much more deeper, right? I have to understand, what do you value in this fruit? And so if we understand what we value, then we can work together and we can expand on opportunities. And so to me, that's an ideal world, a world where we are self-aware of us, where we are also thinking about other people in many different ways, and where we could all share different oranges in critical ways. So being able to address the values and the needs of people is what I would say is an ideal world.
Okay, thanks a lot. ผมก็ถามเกี่ยวกับโลกในอุดมคติแล้วก็ความสุขของมนุษย์นะครับที่ในความคิดเห็นของคุณเอลิซาเบธว่าต้องการให้โลกเป็นยังไงเธอก็บอกว่าเธอก็ยกตัวอย่างในกรณีของมีเด็กชาย2คนที่มีผู้ใหญ่คนหนึ่งแบ่งส้มให้เนื่องจากเขาต้องการส้มผลเดียวกันนะครับมีส้มผลเดียวก็ตัดแบ่งให้ปรากฏว่าเด็กคนหนึ่งเอาไปบีบคั้นเอาน้ำมันนะครับขณะที่เด็กอีกคนน่ะไปเอาครึ่งหนึ่งของตัวเองนะไปแค่เอาแต่เปลือกเพื่อไปให้แม่ทำขนมปังเธอก็เลยว่าทำไมเราไม่คิดถึงว่าถ้าแชร์อันนี้เนื่องจากแต่ละคนนี่มีวัตถุประสงค์ในการใช้ส้มต่างกันถ้าเอาไปใช้ถ้าทั้งสองคนนี้รู้บริบทการใช้ส้มเนี่ยของแต่ละคนเราก็ไม่ต้องสูญเสียประโยชน์ของส่วนส้มทิ้งไปนะครับก็คือได้ใช้ประโยชน์เต็มที่ทั้งผลส้มนั่นก็คือเปรียบกับสังคมเนี่ยนะครับว่าสังคมโลกเนี่ยก็ควรที่จะแต่ละคนก็เข้าใจถึงบริบทความต้องการของต่างคนแต่ละคนนะครับแล้วก็เราจะได้อยู่ร่วมกันบนโลกได้อย่างมีความสงบสุขนะครับโอเคso thank you so much Elizabeth for being my talk today that we planned to take only about 30 minutes but then it maybe close to an hour so
Yes.
it's Yeah. So for the last question, if people that watch this live, this talk, would like to join or to help support your work, what are the channels they can do that?
Yes, no, thank you. It's such an honor and privilege. I think you are one of the most active people I know, and you have so much passion and so much initiative, and even being able to have this talk that shows how determined you are. And I feel so inspired by you. And that's one of the reasons I accepted because I think it's great to have people like you in the world. And for me, yeah, like there's so many ways to support, getting involved, learning. For me, you I think I have a LinkedIn. It's Elizabeth Catherine. I also have an Instagram. It's ELICITQ, Elicit Q. And I have another interesting platform. It's ELI underscore mediation. And this is where we talk to leaders about conflict resolution and making the world a more peaceful place too. So you can follow that. I have Facebook. I have all social media platforms. As long as you find my name of Elizabeth Katherine Gamarra, please join me. And if you're interested in joining any project, like giving a bit of your time to anything that is interesting, please let me know. We're always so happy to embrace people from all over the world. And again, I feel super honored to be here. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much คุณอลิซผมถามว่าผู้ชมอยากจะติดต่อหรือว่าสนับสนุนคุณเอลิซาเบธนี่จะทำอย่างไรได้บ้างนะครับเธอก็บอกว่าเธอนี่ก็มีทั้ง LinkedIn มีทั้งFacebook แล้วก็มีช่อง YouTube นะครับที่จะสามารถดูผลงานหรือว่ารวมทั้งโครงการต่างๆที่เธอทำเดี๋ยวยังไงผมจะขอให้เธอใส่ลิงก์ไว้ใต้โพสต์นี้นะครับเผื่อใครสนใจจะติดต่อเธอหรือว่าจะร่วมงานกับเธอยังไงก็ติดต่อได้ Alright Elizabeth maybe you can give us a link under the post later okay for people to join that and so thanks a lot for joining our talk today it's very good time very excellent time for me so thank you very much would you like to say anything last word for our audience
Thank you. Thank you to everyone. I feel so happy to be here. And as the saying goes, right? Amasura makia mayuya waikipanakuna, which means this philosophy. Don't steal, don't lie, don't be lazy. And I hope we can implement that in uniting the world into one. Thank you so much.
thanks a lot bye everybody bye Elizabeth talk to you later in broadcast now